Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime.
Welcome to... Look who's here! It's Rochelle!
Hello. I am here and I'm feeling fantastic. I've been looking forward to this interview for all week just because it's not an original name, but also an original person. We have Brad Dude here today, and thank you for being here. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
He is an author. He's written 6 books about temperament and your work environment and taking care of yourself and little itty bitty things like, maybe I need to get this for my staff. 40 tips for figuring out your boss would be, that's another good one. And you've also taken the leap into writing a novel, which is really cool. And we love your name, Brad Dude, and stuff. So, and that's easy for people to remember, isn't it?
It is. People think it's a pen name, but it's actually not. Lots of relatives with that name all over the country. So it is funny how people use that name today. Even my own grandkids, I hear them call each other dude. Hey, dude, do this. Hey, dude, why are we doing that? Kind of unsettling at first to hear your own grandkids do it.
That's one of my favorite names that the kids are using. It's like, dude. They even call women dude. Hey, dude. And women call each other dude. It's a kind of weird thing. Rochelle, why does that happen?
I don't know. I think that it has there's just a different ring to it. It has a different emotion, and there's a different energy behind it. Like when I text my cousin or my best friend, I'm like, bro, guess what happened? I don't know why. Some girls do, some girls don't.
Well, I guess it's a term of endearment.
Yeah, I mean, it's your relationship is close.
Think so. During family reunions, we call dudes and dudettes. So that's another way of.
I'm sorry, Brad. That's old school. It's like.
Well, it was an old family reunion. It was a long time ago.
So, and I want to ask you a question. So, when you hear the word dope, what does that mean to you?
Dope. Yeah, it means a stupid person.
That's what I thought too.
But I know there's different definitions today.
Now they call it, like someone who was on the show and he said, man, your show is dope. He was like, what? I thought you liked it.
Yeah.
He was like, oh man, no, that's a term of endearment. That means you're doing really, really good.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how the English language changes over time.
That's right.
But we are so glad that you're here because there's a couple things that I really want to focus on. One of the things is the first books that you wrote were talking about temperament and work environment and how to deal with your boss and how to deal with your teenagers about not having any accidents, because I don't know if you've noticed, sometimes they get a little emotional sometimes.
I have noticed that, yeah.
And so you've been doing on all of this. What got you started writing these books about what you talk about?
I was a journalism major in school and always kind of enjoyed writing. I got involved. I was with the Peace Corps for a long time out in the Pacific in a couple of countries. And part of my role was to do training of new volunteers. And part of my job as a volunteer was to do teacher training for Micronesian teachers. So I had the training came up, and then as you do more and more training, you like to capture some of the things that worked and kind of get rid of some of the things that didn't work. And that led to jotting down some things, and then got into temperament a little bit later with a co-trainer of mine, and we started to kind of compare notes about what we were learning about temperament and how it impacted the leadership capacities of our trainees. And so I started to write about it. And then kind of after the first couple of books, that kind of the basic books on temperament and leadership, started to focus more on applications of it. So for example, using temperament to look at how your teenagers were driving their cars and what was distracting them, and how their temperament preferences influenced how they reacted to traffic, for an example. So that's what kind of got me started doing that. And then, one of my last leadership books is called Quick, I Need to Be a Leader in 30 Days. And that's because a lot of the people that we were training, I was teaching at a leadership class at NASA for about 9 years at one of the places, Goddard Space Flight Center outside of Washington. And we found a lot of people were promoted because of their technical skills, and it happens all the time. You're really good at what you do, so they make you the supervisor or the team leader or the boss. And not everybody has a lot of skills in being a leader and being a manager. And so we began to jot that down, and I came up with an approach to help new leaders, especially, hit the ground running in 30 days.
I was in the food service industry and in the sales industry for a long time. And whenever they needed, because the hierarchy was you had salespeople, and then you have a district sales manager that had like 8 or 10 people working for him and stuff. And every time they wanted to hire a new one, they would say, well, who do we get? How do we find somebody? And somebody would say, inevitably, well, how about Joe? He's the best sales guy, and he makes so much money, and he does so many things. Why don't we promote him to be sales manager? I'm sure he'll be wonderful. And he sucked because he knew how to sell. Selling was easy for him, but teaching how to sell for somebody else was beyond his capacity. So,
well, yeah, exactly. And it happens in virtually every industry. And we found that the challenge was for our trainers, for our trainees, those who were promoted, they didn't have any training for like years. They get promoted and they're just left on their own. And of course, their employees now who report to them expect them to be perfect day one, and they're not. And what we found is that many people don't get that kind of management or leadership training for 5 to 6 to 7 years after they've been on the job. And unfortunately, the habits you pick up your first year, you typically stick with that. And if they're the wrong things, you got a tough career, and your employees are, not well off because of it. So we try to address that issue.
Well, and one of that, and Rochelle, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but has anybody ever given you a survey that if you've been working for a company and the ownership will give you a survey and say, yeah, would you rate us and rate your supervisor and see what they are all about? And then you do the survey, and it's all supposed to be anonymous. And then weeks later, the powers that be call that manager in and say, did you know that your employees and the people that work for you hate you? And it's like, what? I had no idea.
Honestly, I wish that would have happened. I wish. I complained to their face. I complained to other people. And then I usually quit. But to know that at least at some point now they're doing a lot more surveys and research, because even as a consumer, how they treat their employees is kind of runs down the line as how you get treated as a customer. And it's the same way in our relationships, right, Brad?
Yeah. And, trust is a big thing in relationships and on the job. In fact, there was a survey done about 2005, an international survey that found that most workers trusted a stranger more than their boss. Can you imagine? So, I mean, that's feedback. And, Trust is important if you're the leader of an organization trying to be effective. So leadership, it's not easy. It's a challenge.
Well, and you have to look at it, from my perspective, you have to look at it completely differently, because a lot of people will go and they'll get the office and they'll have their name on the door, or they'll get the little plaque, or they get the name tag that says General Manager. When I was in the restaurant business, it was always General Manager, Kevin, and all that. And it's how you look at it. And the way I looked at it, that meant that my responsibility to serve not only my customers, but my employees, and to make sure that everybody was happy, well adjusted, well trained, so that they could make a maximum amount of money. That was the deal for me. And a lot of managers is like, no, look at my name tag. It says General Manager on it.
Well, I know that in our leadership courses, we would talk about the power, and that effective leaders really need to know something about power. And there are 3 types. And that one you described, we call it position power. And, that, and in a sense, if you ask workers, they all think they want to be the boss. They want to have that name tag. They want to have that corner office. But, leadership author John Maxwell says that's the lowest form of leadership, is to have position power, because people are following you because they have to. It's your threat of getting fired or getting reassigned or not having the plum assignment or not getting to go to training. Position power. So that's power that stays with the organization. I worked with Naval Surface Warfare Center for several years doing leadership, and there was an admiral who retired and would call the director in his retirement saying, hey, nobody calls me anymore. I never hear from anybody. I'm just kind of sitting home all the time. And he says, yeah, because you have no power here anymore. When you leave, you no longer can order ships around, order departments to do this or do that. Position goes to the next person that takes that position away from you. So that position power is not as great as people think. It's in examples are, police or military or judges or the IRS. If you don't do something, there are negative consequences assigned to it. As opposed to the second type, which is power of competence, where that stays with you no matter where you go. So you're born with inherent, energy, abilities, and you have your own education that you go through, and you had no power. You thank your parents for all that. You didn't do anything, but you took it all in. But then you have your own positive attitudes toward work and life, and that's all on you, and that goes, with you, and that's kind of a multiplied, that inherent ability by your attitude. But then you also need opportunities. Have you known people who are just really good people, really enthusiastic about the job, but they had no opportunity to expand? That's why effective leaders need to look for opportunities for their people to have experiences and add to their competence. And of course, that second power of competence, that goes with you. You go to the next job. Most people today, it's 3 to 5 to 7 jobs in their career that they might have. That all goes with you, that competence, and you're constantly growing that. So we talk about that with effective leaders. The third one, and the most effective power you can have, is the power of a positive reputation. That's where people follow you because of who you are and what you stand for. It's what you've done for your organization, what you've done to support others. It's the person that you are. And that's where we want to get to. That's where we want our leaders. So you don't have to have a badge that says general manager to be a leader in your organization. And many people, that's sometimes eye-opening for many people who think, oh, power, that means you're the boss. No, it's your reputation is what you want to get. And you can, there's another quote I have in one of my leadership books, is it takes 20 years to build a great reputation and 5 minutes to screw it up. So You got to be aware of your behaviors when you're an effective leader.
I used to tell the assistant managers that worked for me in a restaurant. Now, first of all, everybody needs to understand, as Rochelle knows, because she's worked in the service industries, there are lots of really pretty girls in the restaurant business. And if you are a manager that has decided that you're going to take advantage of your power with dating the help and doing things like that, it affects your reputation in such a negative way that you become totally ineffective. Do you agree with that?
I do. We see it all the time from senators who get in trouble for bribes to sex scandals, that we're seeing on the news every night. Reputation, it's incredible. And if you want to be an effective leader, you got to be aware of that and be sensitive to it. No question about it.
It's that sex thing. It always gets in the way, doesn't it, Rochelle?
No, not in my case, thank God. But I'm lucky enough to be a woman, so I can thank my own self for that and the way that I am. But it comes in all sorts and forms of relationships. You meet I've had this happen. I'm guilty of all of it. You meet somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, they're not just an employee here. They could be my friend. That is probably one of the biggest mistakes you could make in terms of how you think about it, because you don't actually know this person. And it comes down to, if they did something or got caught up in a situation, you're tied to them. So also there's that side of, when you stand in your own ground, you have to be careful of who you choose to even have around you, let alone your own self.
And Brad, we need to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk to you more about leadership. And also, I love the fact that you have had a career that spans, a few decades, many more than just a few. But you're continuing to write and you're continuing to do some really cool stuff. And, you mentioned somebody that was in power and they're no longer in power. Nobody calls them anymore. They now don't know who they are. And they have no idea what they're going to do next. And I'm glad that you're continuing, as I am, as Rochelle will be in 100 years, that we'll be able to make all of that work. And by the way, if you are a real estate agent, if you want to be a real estate agent, if you think you're a real estate agent, but you don't have any listings and you can't have no way of getting a listing because you don't know what you're doing, I got a guy who knows what he's doing, and so let's talk to him right now.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
Oh no, I can't hear the music.
Yeah, can you hear music?
No.
Seriously, no music?
Yes. It's okay.
Oh,
I know.
That is so sad. I thought I had music. Oh well. In any event, we're talking with Brad Duke, and by the way, Brad, I want to tell you a story, and it's about the white wolf, because Rochelle put on her white wolf today, and she did everything right, and she got and she ended up with. And one of these days, Rochelle, not today because I think you're going to be too emotional, but in the near future, we're going to have to talk about the whole process behind what happened here and how it all turned out really so positive for you. And it was all had to do with your mindset and who you are. And also you found the right people and the right thing. Brad, that is one of the things that you write about a lot, isn't it? About temperament and mindset and having the right attitude about about life and about your friends and family and all of that?
Yeah, very much. It's all about knowing your emotions, being self-aware. That's what really got us into the temperament and developing a model called the basic elements of temperament. There are many, many different models on type of leadership types and different social styles and all kinds of models like that. But we found in our classes, especially at NASA, when we would ask people if they had gone through such models and tests and surveys, almost all of them said yes, but almost all of them couldn't remember what they meant or what their score was, or like, yeah, and so what,
Yeah.
So my colleague at the time and I came up with the model, and we said, well, let's try to simplify it. And so we used earth, air, fire, and water to define the basic elements that anybody, any leader, any person, would easy to remember and can figure out what they should do with it. Briefly, let me go through it. It's we're born, temperament is that inborn part of our personality that influences how we look at the world and how we react when we see behaviors. As a leader, when you see behaviors from your employees, and your reaction, your oftentimes knee-jerk reaction to it. It's kind of about, mostly it's about temperament. It could also be about the circumstances in which you see that behavior and the choices that you need to make and you can make. So we thought earth, air, fire, water. It's based on, Freud and Jung and all the work that's been done on that, on our unconscious and how we look at things. So we wanted to simplify it. And we found that all of us have all four of these basic elements in us. If you imagine like in a restaurant with 4 dinner plates stacked up on each other, the top one we call the dominant temperament. And that's the one that is most like you, that you prefer to be viewed as. And when you see that behavior in employees and in the world, you say, yeah, that's normal. That's right. No problem. The second one is called your secondary temperament. And that is that kind of supports your thoughts about your dominant temperament. Many people think they have 2 dominants because they interact with both of those the same. But research would say, no, you have one with that, the second one being a secondary. The tertiary, the third plate of that stack, is called the tertiary. And when you see behaviors from that, whichever one that is, earth, air, fire, or water, everyone's different. You're kind of neutral. It doesn't bother you one way or the other. The last plate is the one we really deal with a lot in our leadership class. That's called our shadow temperament. This is the one that gets us in trouble. This is the one that we don't like as much. This is the one we least want to be perceived as holding. When we see behaviors from that shadow temperament, whichever one it is, earth, air, fire, or water, every one of us is different. We have often a negative reaction to that. And that's the one that oftentimes arises in the workplace that gets us into arguments, into not liking people, into making some judgment that we probably should not have made. So let me go through them real quickly. Earth, that's the ones that people with the dominant earth, they look at facts and figures, want to plan it all out, more traditional types, give me, what's the plan? What are the step-by-step procedures? Air is the more, is people, dominant air people value competence the most. They want to be right. They expect themselves to be competent in what they do, and they expect you to be competent in what you do too. And if you're not, they got a problem with you. They look at the big picture. They can tell what your organization should look like 5 years, 10 years from now. They're great when looking, more visionary. They like to look way ahead. The third one are the fires. These are folks, dominant fire. These are your a little bit more fun people. They're like the Earth in terms of want facts and figures, but they like to change things around and use them to solve problems. They never do things the same way, and people don't know, hey, this is a troubleshooter. We don't know what this person's gonna do. And they usually like to have a lot of fun doing it. Great sense of humors. And the fourth one is water, is your folks who are much like the heirs. They look at the big picture. They look at policies in an organization, but unlike the heirs who just want to look at the vision, they want to work alone with competent people. The waters all care about the people and how do our policies impact the life of our co-workers and our people. So all of us have all four of those in us, but we have them in those four plates: dominant, secondary, tertiary, and our shadow. I hope that makes some sense.
It does indeed, Brad. And I'm just curious to know, why don't more leaders, why are they not more sympathetic or in that's not the word I'm looking for, but more interested in the welfare of their employees and how rules and things are going to impact those people? They're not very empathetic towards them, and it's like, why are leaders like that? Is it just because they can be, or is it they just don't know any better? Because it's not the best way to operate.
I think it's a kind of a combination, but it's also the way businesses run today. You got that badge, it's that position power that they're in, and they've got rules, regs, they've got numbers to meet on a quarterly basis. They got pressure from above, they got pressure from below. It's pressure filled. And one of the challenges I know that we've had in the past in our leadership classes, that people have to wear two hats. Usually organizations don't have a job title called leader. It's manager or team leader or branch chief or something. And the expectation is you're also going to be a leader, even though there's definitely different responsibilities for each of those. So, it's a challenge. And I think there are some just, no training at all. Lots of folks, again, brought up because of their technical expertise. And those are the people who oftentimes become micromanagers. They don't know what to do as managers or leaders because they've never had any kind of background or training in it. And what do they know? Well, what they know is the technical skill that they used to have before they were promoted. So unfortunately, what we've learned is that your technical expertise dwindles over time when you're not doing it every day. So they are looking over the shoulders of modern day technicians and saying, well, that's not the way you should do it. That's micromanagement. And that leads to unhappy folks who either avoid those type of managers altogether, or they just give up and they say, yeah, here it is. I'm waiting for your approval, and nothing gets done. Deadlines are not made. Or you get sabotaged. People will sabotage them.
Well, and I used to be told, and kind of on a regular basis near the end, because I had been in charge and stuff, and so being subservient to somebody else didn't work anymore for me. And one guy actually came to me and said, you're not a very good employee. Because I was like, why are you doing that? That is just stupid. And tried to explain it to him and stuff. But Rochelle, you've never had anybody that was bad. Did anybody ever call you a bad employee? Okay, we got to take a break.
Hey, they were right. I'll give them that.
We're talking with Brad Dude, and yes, that is his real name. Brad Dude. He's an author. We're going to talk about in the second half of the interview. I would love to talk, because Rochelle and him, before I got here, I was busy doing other stuff. They were talking about his novel that he has out. And it's so exciting that you made the switch from doing the books that you were, and you're continuing, because like my dad, when he retired from Nordstrom and he became Just Jack instead of Mr. McDonald, and he didn't know what to do. And I'm glad that some of us are continuing to live our passion and do what we can and what we want to do, because goodness gracious, the end comes soon enough, don't you think, Brad?
I definitely agree to that. Yeah.
And the older I get, the sooner it gets here. So we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to the show, everybody. Apparently, the band has decided to go home for the day. So we can. But before I got here, Rochelle, you were talking with Brad about his newest book, which is called Finding Eden. Relay a little bit about that conversation and any questions you may have for Brad.
Honestly, I want to jump into that extremely bad, and I kind of got to ask him questions, so I'm going to leave that up to you after he gives a good explanation, Brad, if you want to go over kind of the background of what came up with the idea and what it's all about. But I have to ask you before we close this out, because it's screaming in my head. We talked about being a leader and what it's like to be in that position. I just want a key point. You can just take a minute to explain this, but what are some key things that we can do, anybody can do on the other side of the leader when they realize, hey, is this a good leader and somebody I should be following or not? And kind of ways to just tell that out, because a lot of people I see, they look up to somebody, and you meet that person and it's like, why? So
Goldman's model on emotional intelligence is interesting for people to read. Some people say that's the whole idea about being able to recognize your own emotions in the workplace and those of others, and being able to effectively deal with both your own and the emotions of employees is really all you need to be an effective leader. So I would say, when you look at, we talk about reputation as part of, our goal is to have that positive reputation. I would look at the reputation of somebody in the leadership position, see how they interact with others. If they say, for example, we have an open door policy, but you see their door is always closed, kind of gives you a hint that it's not always what they say. It's about walking the talk, really. Are they real? Are they doing what they say is important to them? I think those are important for us as employees and followers to look as our leaders.
Okay, thank you.
I has another question, sir. and this is, I took over. I was in the restaurant business, and I ran restaurants that had 75 employees, 3 or 4 managers, and kitchen staff, and all that. And whenever I went into a new building, and they didn't know me, they didn't know who I was, they didn't know anything about me, I had a philosophy of what I called divide and conquer. And what I did was I went to the players that were there and said, who are some of the key employees here? Who are some of the people that people follow? Because they're leaders of the wait staff and leaders in the kitchen and stuff. And then I would call them specifically together and tell them that they were my team and I would need them to go out and to help others understand where we were coming from as a philosophy, and actually got their buy-in, and that ended up helping secure the entire staff without people getting mad and leaving and all that kind of stuff. Was that a good philosophy, or did I just get dang lucky?
I think it's a pretty positive approach. Like we said, leaders are not just those with position power. You found some leaders, amongst the employees themselves, and that's important. It's like most organizations, it's like a pyramid, and there are very few jobs at the top, and those jobs at the top are usually the position power jobs. So you've got a big base in that pyramid of employees, and somebody's doing the right thing for their customers, for coworkers, and stakeholders. So I think that's very appropriate to do that.
Well, good. So tell us about Finding Eden.
Well, I spent a lot of time in the Peace Corps out in Micronesia, Central Pacific, as well as in Samoa, where I was staff, and back in Micronesia, I was staff. So a lot of island experience. I always enjoyed the island life and some of the challenges that it presented. And I also thought, and my wife is involved with dealing with migrant issues, which is kind of in the news every night these days. And so I try to kind of put them together. I started to do some research about migrants, especially African and Middle East and South Asian migrants coming across the Mediterranean. I was learning that so many were drowning trying to get to Europe in flimsy boats. So that got me thinking, wow, that'd be a great movie to have some kind of rescue in the Mediterranean, and somehow they get to an island, and that's how it started. I drafted it as kind of a movie in my mind and got some feedback. I'm part of the International Screenwriters Association branch here in New Orleans, and we meet once a month, and got feedback. And somebody said, boy, you ought to think about a book for that. So I got into doing it as a book. That where I could dive into the characters in more detail, use a lot of the research I was getting. And then I found this great group, shout out to Paper Raven Books, who do the self-publishing and editing and things like that, and got into a relationship with them as well, and kind of fleshed out the book so that it became an action adventure where migrants trying to get across to Europe are rescued by a German rescue ship. But Europe has closed all its ports to asylum seekers, and so they have to go find another place to go. They find an island that they think is going to be okay temporarily for them, but it's run by modern day pirates who are involved with a lot of bad things, and they divide the people off the ship by their ethnicity. So we've got an African village and an Arab village and an Asian village, and the pirates have brainwashed them in a sense so they think they're all fighting each other. And so the whole idea of then the movie and the book is that the crew, especially the first officer, who is kind of in love with the female captain of the rescue ship who's been captured, tries to mount a rescue by trying to bring those three warring villages together to help them save all the people that have been kidnapped. Mm. So that's kind of what it's all about. There's a lot of action, and the leadership aspect of it, and the shift from doing my nonfiction leadership books, I wanted to try to make some characters kind of apply some of the leadership and temperament principles to their actions in the book. And so readers of the book will find that some characters are kind of earthy, kind of by the book, like the captain is for a while, very much follow the rules, where somebody else is a fire and kind of let's do what needs to be done. We're troubleshooters and let's get the job done and get people together. and Waters, who are very sympathetic to all the people involved and the hardships they're going through, and intellectual heirs who kind of are trying to analyze the situation and want to make a contribution that way. So for me, it was kind of fun to take all of the leadership principles and put them in a kind of a new platform.
Well, let me see here. I don't know of any place on Earth that really separates people by ethnicity and makes up stories about the other, and all, you know, with a design to keep people separate and to keep them away from forming a group together to go after the. Wait a minute. That island wasn't the United States by chance, was it?
Not exactly, but it's amazing how truth and fiction kind of come together sometimes.
It is remarkable. And by the way, I wanted to mention this because you were with the Peace Corps, right? Okay, the Peace Corps used to be an organization that was run by the United States of America, and they would send kids to different places around the world where they could learn about other cultures and they can help other people and stuff like that. I'm not even sure the Peace Corps exists today, does it?
It does. It's still there. You know, they've gone through also some people looking at their budgets as well as USAID. Unfortunately, it was, you know, a focus. You know, it's a shame when you think about it, when our foreign aid is, you know, less than 1% of our budget, and that's what got cut. But yeah, it's still there, and trying to still do a good job of learning about other cultures.
I got a question, Michelle. What do you think about this? If we were to all, when you got out of high school, because when you got out of high school, what were you, all of 18 and like 4'2" and 25 pounds? Okay, you were bigger than that. But wouldn't it be great if we had a service? Now they do this in Sweden and in other countries, but wouldn't it be great if we had rather than get out of high school and then go to college and get a bunch of debt? Why not send people on like the Peace Corps and do a mission so that all the kids get to work together and they get to learn different things and different cultures and different people? Brad, what do you think? Would that be a good idea?
In general, yes. I think there's a volunteer service should be considered. Going to other countries with just a high school education, I'm not sure. You know, it would be arrogant of us to think that just because we're Americans, we've got something to offer to other countries. Now, and I was a generalist when I went into the Peace Corps as an English teacher, and I'm sure there's still English teacher jobs, you know, available. But I think it's much more specialized. Countries are more developed today, and they know what they want. They want agriculturalists. They want nurses. They want some technical folks. But in general, I'm very much in favor of folks volunteering. You know, AmeriCorps was like that. I think it just recently got cut or dwindled as well. But people should look for opportunities like that to make a contribution to the country that way. I think it's very important.
Well, and it also gives them a chance to grow up, because I don't know about you, but when I was 18, I was not very intelligent and had lots of problems. And Michelle, I'm so excited that you're doing the show with us. Would you like to take us to break, young lady?
I would love to. Thanks for being with us, everybody. Stay for the last 15 minutes. I want to bring up the fact that this Finding Eden is going to be a movie. So we'll talk about how that all came into play. We got Kevin here with us, myself, and Brad Dude. So don't go anywhere.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
And welcome back to Positive Talk Radio, everybody. I was waiting for the music. I really gave it a chance, but
Yeah, I know.
we're here with Kevin and Brad Dude, and we're talking about all of his books, his leadership skills, things to learn. I think a lot of these points all start with yourself, right? You can't really teach or have anybody that is looking up to things you're doing if you have nothing to show for it. And talking about what you're building in your generation line and what there is to look at in your past, because I love how you bring up that it does kind of matter what your reputation is. It shows who you are as a person, good or bad. You can see the growth and you can see the downfall. And I think that's both equally important. So talking about Finding Eden, leaving off where we were, tell us a little bit about the film.
Well, let me correct you. It's not a film. We hope it will be someday.
Okay.
And where we are right now with it is writing and upgrading the script of it and getting feedback from a variety of sources on it. So it's wishful thinking on my part that it will be a movie someday. A lot of people think that it will make a good one, but it's somewhat of a crapshoot.
Yeah, well, it's a long process, of course,
but it's fun to do.
Yeah.
To spend a lot of time, trying to make it as realistic as possible, and it's been fun. As Kevin was saying, we don't want to just sit and watch TV all day. We want to do something that we enjoy. I've enjoyed writing, and as I was saying, I enjoyed taking some of the leadership principles that I've worked with for so long and put them into a new platform to open people's eyes and experiences to what could be in a movie script like that. So it's been a lot of fun to do, and I've entered it in different contests, and you get feedback on it, and they say, "Wow, we didn't understand this at all," and then others say, "Hey, this part's really good. This part stinks." And so you got to take all that in, and it's just been, fun, and we're all going to get that. I get that on the book as well. I think I've got about 130 reviews so far on the book of Finding Eden, and most are very positive. And I hope listeners will add their own reviews to all my books. They're all available, and it really helps. And it gives me feedback on making improvements and more ideas for more writing as we go forward.
And by the way, Brad, you were wrong. You don't have 130 reviews. You have 132 and 4.6 average, which is more than I averaged in school. I can tell you that. So people like the book. 132 reviews is nothing to sneeze at. So you are an accomplished writer. Say it after me. Brad Dude is an accomplished writer who's got lots and lots of talent and lots of time to write more and to do more, because it's important that you continue to. You have amassed. I wanted to ask you about this because I talked to folks that have been on the planet a little while longer, and you have amassed such a wealth of knowledge that it's important that you share it with younger generations. Whether or not they'll listen to you is up to them, but it's important that. Do you think that way?
My wife doesn't let me think that way.
That's why I got rid of mine.
So it kind of keeps you grounded, but yeah, I mean, it's an accomplishment, but it's never done, and other people have done so much more, and so that's what kind of inspires me to continue on. And I meet weekly with our Paper Raven book folks and other authors, and the challenges that we all face, and getting reviews and getting feedback on it, and what do we do next, and how do we increase the readership and interest in what we do. So it's never ending, whether it's on the script side or it's on the book side. There's plenty to do. There's more books to write, more screenplays, kind of waiting to be written as well. So never a dull moment kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that you mentioned quite a few times in the last few minutes is constructive criticism. And to leave us with one thing, what's your view on that? How do you handle it? How do you perceive it?
It's a challenge, especially for new leaders. Rick Hanson's book, Buddha's Brain, is good for that. He talks about the negative inner narrative that we have that we says, hey, we can't do that. We're not doing the right thing. It's all that self-doubt that often we have when we're put into a new position, especially. And that's it's tough to overcome that. I'll give you an example for our training courses, what we used to do to deal with that. At the end of every workshop, we would get up in front of the group with the kind of charts and ask what worked well, what didn't work well, and what we could do better.
Yeah.
And people started to raise their hands, and we would jot everything down. And our response can only be, thank you. And it keeps us trying to defend all the stuff we're doing, Oh, you didn't understand that? Well, it must be you. Why didn't you listen better? No. Yeah. Take it all in, and then later go back through it, and then start to work, look at it as constructive feedback and criticism that you can do something with. Sometimes you can't. You say, oh, that's old Charlie. Yeah. That's old Kevin. He's crazy.
I am not.
So that's how I've dealt with it. But it's always a challenge. We all have that inner dialogue sometimes that get us, in trouble, keep us from trying out new things.
Very good.
Well, that's when the ego gets involved, and it says, no, it was better than that. How dare you? How could you be? But you don't learn unless you're willing to take the criticism and hopefully it's done in a positive manner. But to take, which sometimes is and sometimes isn't. But that's what we all hope for. And by the way, now you've done Finding Eden. Is there another book on the way?
Yes. One of my friends said that the next one should be called Leaving Eden. So, I kind of like that title. If folks have been on this island for a long time now and living happily, what happens when some of the asylum seeker laws change and start to disperse? Do you go off or do you stay where you're kind of happy? And it gets into the challenge of what's our responsibility as adults or as heads of families. Is it to push our children to do better and have more opportunity, making us go other places to make that happen? Or do we settle where we are and just make the most of where we sit? And some will go one way, some will go another, I think. Anyway, we were thinking along those lines about that.
Are you sure that the island here isn't the United States? Because what you just described is happening across the country, and it really is. It's sad and it's shameful. And I don't talk politics, so never mind. But Brad Dude has been our guest, and we are so happy he's here. He is a management and a leadership expert, and he's got all kinds of books. By the way, the one that, and we don't have a lot of time, but the one about temperament and teenage driving, I think can be very, very helpful for not only parents, but for the kids because they need to learn to calm down and relax and not to, because road rage right now, I guess road rage is a really big thing right now.
Yes. The book we did it, it's like a booklet, and I envisioned it being in the glove compartment of every car for the parent to pull out and guide the parent in kind of understanding what's going on, and a little checklist and things like that. So it's kind of fun, as well, and talks about what we can do as parents to try to guide our teenagers a little bit to be more safe. So I think the title is like keeping our teenagers safe on the road is no accident. So that's
very good.
What we were thinking.
And it's really not, and beyond safety belts and stuff like that, and substance abuse and things that kids do just because kids are kids, but the cell phone use and the distracted driving is beyond dangerous. And I just would hate to see anybody that thinks that I've known people that I can drive and I can text at the same time. I don't have to worry about it until they do. And
it's also about having a bunch of kids, friends in the car as well that distract them, and the loud music. And there's a lot of things in there. It'd be great. I haven't had too many people get that book, but I think it's a natural for parents with teenage drivers. It's really for the parent more than the child, but it does have discussion questions in there for them to look. And I'd love to get some reviews on it and feedback.
So Michelle,
I was going to say, keep in mind, don't be too cocky with yourself. I was paying attention, but I was distracted in my mind, which is the same thing, people. And I drove straight over the landscape of a McDonald's and totaled my car. So it comes down to more than just your physical attention, but your mental attention as well. And I love that you specify how much this is for parents, because everything the child learns is usually from the parent. So thank you so much for sharing that.
And I have one more sound piece of advice for all drivers, really. And that is, if you're driving a U-Haul and the U-Haul is 9 feet tall and you go through a trestle that is 8 feet 5 inches tall, that's not a very good idea. So always know where you are at all times.
Good advice.
I know that from personal experience. So, but that's a story for another time, because I don't want them to come get me. Anyway, so Rochelle, thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on your wonderful day today.
Thank you. I got to end and finish. Wow, I'm making new words today. I got to end and wrap up and finish my day here with you and Brad, dude. It's been an honor. I myself haven't realized that when we first talked to you, you had so many books that teach so many different aspects. So I'm going to share those with people and keep doing what you're doing. I honestly would love to have you back and see where you're at in a few months.
I appreciate it very much. And, my website also has a little quiz.
Yes. Let's share your website, which is?
It's braddude.com. And
even I can remember that.
Yeah, it's real easy. And there's a little temperament quiz on there. In fact, it's called "Which of the Basic Elements of Temperament is Killing Your Career?" And it allows you to go in and learn more about temperament, and gives you a little quiz to see kind of where you sit, briefly where you sit. And you can read about all 4 temperaments and how it may influence you a little bit. Plus, I have some new TikTok videos you should know. It's kind of been fun to kind of kick off the leadership books. And so it's on TikTok, just Brad Dude /author. And that's kind of fun. There's about 25 little videos on there now. Some on Mardi Gras, so it's kind of fun to see those. So.
Congratulations, young man.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And we got to go, but Rochelle, you get to take us out.
Yes. Well, thank you, Kevin, for making this possible. Thank you for everybody for being here, and Brad, wholesomely for your time and everything you do. We wish you the best of luck, and always come back and keep in touch with us. So thanks everybody, and take care of yourself. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, Be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin at K.